we might be live. Let me head over and take a look at the window here. I think we should be starting in a second. Yeah, now I am live. Cool. Alright. Don't know if anybody's going to be on right now. It's kind of a weird time. I haven't done one later on in the evening like this for me in a while, so we'll see if anybody pops in. But anyway, I'm going to be doing another vegan news live stream. Talk about a lot of great stories for you guys today. Some really happy, some not so happy. And I also want to do a special talk today about Februdairy, which is the animal agriculture's industry propaganda equivalent to Veganuary, when they try to basically convince people to drink more dairy, consume more dairy products. And yeah, I'm going to talk about that quite a bit. So we will see how this goes along. Hopefully some people start joining in. If you do, let me know if you can hear me okay. I think I'm okay as far as I can see on the mic level and stuff like that. But if you have any problems, just let me know in the chat. I'll keep an eye on it. And just in the spirit of keeping everything moving, I am going to jump right in. Hopefully people join as we go. And if not, anybody who joins late can just you know, always rewind it and watch it later. Got one person watching so far. Cool. So welcome, and I'll make a start. So yeah, let's switch over to the browser view here. So basically, what first little bit of news that I got for you guys here is related to the Super Bowl and football. I didn't watch the game. I don't watch football. I actually had to check kind of afterward to see who even won. And so apparently the Patriots won. And they have, I guess, won this a bunch of times already, so it's kind of like a big deal. And the thing is also that I guess you know, a lot of the guys on the team are kind of like not so young anymore compared to like several of the other, I guess, football teams out there. I'm not a sports person, as you can probably tell. So anyway, I found this interesting article that talked about the largely plant-based vegan diet of the quarterback, Tom Brady, as well as several of the other teammates. And basically, I think I've talked about this before in a previous stream. Tom Brady, I guess, is involved even with some vegan meal plan kind of you know, options and stuff like this, and he's convinced a lot of his teammates to adopt a plant-based diet. I don't think most of them are really vegan or anything. I'm not even sure that he's fully vegan. It's just that he's like mostly vegan or like largely plant-based. And a lot of these guys are now starting to see the health benefits. So you have this player, the tight end, Rob Gronkowski. He's going to go down in history books as one of the best to ever play the game. He's 29 years old, which I guess in football terms is pretty old. And I talked about this as well before, but their bodies really take a beating from this game. It's like really crazy. But he attributes his you know, longevity to following a predominantly plant-based diet. And yeah, it's just pretty cool. So you know, he's just talking about how the team is kind of split on it. Like, a lot of the people aren't convinced, but you know, he says that it's really helping him out. So he says, I'm not super crazy, but I'm pretty crazy about his diet. Gronkowski said, I'd like to go with the mostly plant-based diet. I'd say about 75%, and then the other 25% just keeping it clean but eating whatever. Making sure I get my fruits and veggies in every day. So, you know, it's like he's obviously not really vegan, certainly not from an ethical standpoint, but you know, it's just good to see more and more people realizing the power of plants. The whole food plant-based diet is definitely the way to go for longevity, recovery. You know, sports people are just coming in droves to realize this. So I just think this is a bit of good news, and the fact that they won probably doesn't, you know, hurt either, to get more people on board with that message. So I think that's pretty cool. Next, also related to the Super Bowl, there was a bit of controversy in that Hyundai, the automaker, ran an ad that kind of had some vegans upset, because it was basically you know, talking about how there was this vegan dinner party, and it was in a commercial that was talking about all sorts of experiences that are bad, and this was like listed among one of them. So it was, you know, things like getting a prostate check at your doctor and going for a root canal at the dentist and all these kinds of like really unpleasant things, and going to the vegan dinner party was like one of these things. And so this poor lady comes out with this beet loaf, and then people are just kind of like, oh, and there's a guy who like dry heaves when he sees it. So, you know, obviously some people got upset. The only reason I want to mention this is that because some people were supportive of it, even from the vegan side. Some people said like, look, you know, it's bringing veganism to, you know, a more large stream, or what do you call it, more mainstream audience. Large audiences seeing this, and you know, any publicity is good publicity kind of thing. I think it was definitely kind of like, you know, mocking the, you know, vegan diet. I personally don't think it's very funny, but I'm certainly not like upset by it. I think it really just kind of falls into the category of thing that I've talked about in my recent video about censorship, where when you have a majority opinion, you can basically make fun of and be very sarcastic and joking around about people in the minority opinion. So in this case, the vegan group is obviously the you know, minority group, and it's okay, and it's considered kind of funny to poke fun at them, and it's really kind of the equivalent of, you know, the things I talked about in the censorship video, that you know, in the old days, like, you could make racial jokes like this, or you can make sexist jokes like this, or you could make, you know, whatever it is about the majority view held, and then basically as it becomes less and less popular, then it will become less and less popular to make a joke about that, because people are more aware of you know, so many more people having those sensibilities, and they don't want to be you know, kind of seen as somebody who's offending people. So that's my take on it. But if you want to see it, I'll have the link for it here. You can see the full ad. I'm not going to play it, but you know, you guys can see that it looks like it has a largely, you know, positive you know, like to dislike ratio here on YouTube. So yeah, and you read through the comments, you know, it kind of just reiterates what I just said. A lot of people are saying like, those stupid vegans getting offended, you know, what the heck's wrong with them? And then some vegan people are like, oh, I think it's pretty funny and whatever. So yeah, anyway, just thought I'd share that. A little bit of news here, also positive from Hawaii. They look to be like the first state that will ban cigarette sales altogether. They have a plan in place to basically do like a phase out. So here it is. Under his bill, the minimum smoking age would increase to 30 in 2020, 40 in 2021, 50 in 2022, etc. They're basically adding a decade in each year up until 2024, when you would need to be 100 years old to buy cigarettes legally in Hawaii. So this is a bill that Representative Richard Cregan has proposed. So, you know, we'll see what happens. It doesn't apply to e-cigarettes, cigars, or chewing tobacco. I do find this part a little bit strange, that the cigars and the chewing tobacco are not included. If the e-cigarettes are not included, I would say that that's kind of, you know, to be expected, because you want to give people an option to wean themselves off, and a lot of people do go to the e-cigarettes, the electric cigarettes, you know, to do that. So I just think it's funny that the other two are not going to be in there. But as a first step, hey, it's great. You know, I personally don't smoke. I have nothing against smokers in, you know, in the way that as long as they're doing it responsibly and only smoking themselves and not in front of other people, especially children. I kind of view it as like, you know, alcohol drinking or something, where it's like, it's definitely harmful to your health, but if you do it responsibly, quote unquote, and you're only harming your own health, I kind of view it as like a civil liberty, and I don't really, you know, I don't really have an issue with it. But with all that said, I do not think that the, you know, cigarette companies are ethical companies. I think that they have for decades, you know, lied to people and gotten their ads to target children and a whole host of other things that you can go on and on about. So I feel no sympathy for them either. And you know, if somebody really wants to keep smoking, I'm sure they'll find a way to do it. You know, maybe they'll grow their own, or switch to you know, marijuana or something. But I'm not really sure that it's, you know, better or worse. But I do think, you know, I hate the little cigarette filters that get left when people throw their butts on the ground. those take like forever to break down. I don't know if everybody knows that or not, but the little filter is made from some kind of like, you know, plastic foam or whatever, and the stuff takes forever. It's like, I don't know the exact thing, so don't quote me, but if you just like look it up, it's like probably a couple decades or something before it will actually like break down. And yeah, it's just super annoying. And other countries that I've visited in, you know, people tend to be, you know, either more or less respectful when it comes to their smoking. Like in Japan, people are like really, really meticulous. After they smoke, they have like a little case or something that they put the cigarette butt in, and then they like, you know, throw that out after. Nobody will throw their cigarette butt, you know, away. And but like here in Europe, it's like, I mean, the places I've been anyway, like most places, like people are just flicking them wherever, you know, on the street and stuff. Here in Hungary, it's really bad, and I find that to be super annoying. So yeah, I guess that's just kind of like, if they get this through, I would say good for them. I don't like seeing the butts on the ground after. We'll see if it goes through. I talked about this story from Australia. I can't remember if it was the last one or the one before, but basically there was a huge fish kill that happened, and the local governments have said that it's basically from the drought and from the extreme heat, but many environmentalist groups and you know, just concerned citizens have said that it is actually from the mismanagement of the water. There are large industry interests ranging from animal agriculture industry to cotton growers and other things like that, where they have basically plundered the water and taken so much of it, and that they basically caused this huge you know, problem, and a huge fish kill has resulted twice now. One was the one that I told you guys about, and now it's a second one has happened when the temperature plunged from 46 degrees to 28 degrees Celsius, which is a huge difference, obviously, and that's really hot to kind of still pretty hot, but like not as hot. And they've said that this has resulted in just a massive kill, hundreds of thousands of fish. I've shown you guys the you know, pictures before of some of these fish that were as old as 100 years old that have gotten killed, and you know, basically this is just an insane thing that's happening, and a lot of people are saying it's the mismanagement of the water for these industry interests. So really sad to see it, and you know, they're basically in a bad shape. There's algae bloom now because of the low water and the low oxygen, and the temperature change, the drastic temperature change didn't help. So it's just they're basically saying like, yeah, it's really terrible here. And there is a quote here at the end that was pretty good here. University of New South Wales professor of environmental science Richard Kingsford, an expert on the Menindee Lakes, said the report was a good report as far as it goes. He's talking about the report that was prepared by the town. It's a good scientific assessment of the proximate causes, he said, but he said the reference to other fish kills during the Millennium Drought in the report underplayed the seriousness of these incidents. The Millennium incidents had been nowhere near the scale of the present incidents. They had involved thousands of deaths, not hundreds of thousands, he said. So this is just like orders of magnitude larger, and yeah, he's saying it's all about what was the condition of the river, not just in the short term but longer term. There is an absence of good data on water quality. It doesn't identify the status of blue-green algae before or after the fish kill. So yeah, it's probably, you know, if I had to guess, it's probably because the industry interests didn't want the report to be, you know, thorough enough to really tell people and let people know what's going on. So yeah, sad day there. This one is just kind of in the, could be filed in the another week, another meat, you know, safety scandal. This one is basically undercover investigations showed Polish slaughterhouses basically slaughtering and you know, processing very sick cattle that couldn't stand. They were, you know, dragged. All the kind of regulations that are supposed to be there to protect you know, people from sick animals going into the food chain were basically, you know, curtailed here. And yeah, it's just another sad story. One thing that I did want to mention in this story as well is the one that I talked about before when I talked about the abuses that were documented in the Netherlands. and how the Netherlands is a very important exporter to the UK. So for the people watching in the UK, and if you're still consuming meat, you definitely want to consider this too, because like I just showed you guys in the other stream about the ethical kind of like implications of it, the abuse that goes on in those farms. This one is obviously similar in that the cows were basically beaten and dragged to their death. They weren't even healthy enough to be able to walk to their deaths. And here it says Polish beef exports to the UK are roughly the same as those from the Netherlands. So it's pretty bad. You can see here UK revenue and customs data show that in 2017 the UK imported 64 million pounds worth of Polish beef, about 16.5 million kilograms. So people are definitely eating it, and you have pretty good reason to suspect that you might be getting sick if you're eating sick animals. So yeah, just a sad story. Here's another pretty timely article coming out. The scientists in this article mention how they are studying land that has been covered in ice for 40,000 years. It's now exposed because of the ice melting, and this is up in Canada, in which island? It was shoot, I can't remember. Trying to find it real quick for you guys, but Baffin Island, yeah. So this was up in Baffin Island, and what they said was that this region, based on the stuff that they were looking at for the various plants that are growing there, and carbon dating like the quartz crystals and the rocks and all this kind of stuff, they're saying that this is the modern temperatures represent the warmest century in 115,000 years for this area. So pretty crazy stuff. Yeah, just very wild. So yeah, pretty crazy. Check that out. Next one, climate change will melt vast parts of the Himalayas, study says. This is a study that was talking about all the people that live in that area and depend on that area for water and food. And the crazy part that jumped out for me is kind of near the end, if I remember right. Let me try to find it for you guys. Sorry guys, thought there was, here, this is it. So freshwater from the region's glaciers flows into 10 major river basins, contributing to the drinking water, irrigation, and energy needs of approximately 1.9 billion people, or about a quarter of the world's population. So that part just jumps out at me. That is just such a huge, huge number. And if you think like things are bad now with forced immigration from wars and environmental damage, imagine, like I keep saying, when you have coastal land being eroded, when you have clean water not being available, when you don't have places that are suitable to live in anymore because of the heat or extreme dryness, and then you add to that taking away, say, clean water and energy production and irrigation from 1.9 billion people, what do you think will happen? So I mean, this is just scary, scary stuff, and this is not just some one person. This was a very complicated assessment done by a lot of scientists, some of the best people looking at this, and this is what they're saying, is that these glaciers are melting, and it's a huge problem. And yeah, here it is. Climate change will reduce how much farmers will be able to produce in this part of the world. About 70% of the population of this region are farmers, and there's already great food insecurity there. So it's not getting any better, and this is very scary stuff. Hi, Perpetual Annoyed. Thanks for joining. Let me know if this sounds okay. I didn't have anybody kind of at the beginning checking, so I'm not sure if you guys can hear me okay, but just let me know. Okay, next we've got a pretty interesting opinion piece here in The Guardian. I found this article to be pretty pretty spot on. He's basically just saying like, look, we have all this freezing happening on in the U.S. The Midwest right now is in. Thanks a lot for checking. Thanks. They're in this polar vortex and all this kind of stuff. And basically, the opinion piece is calling into question all the people who are using these cold snaps as an excuse to basically deny I would say global warming or climate change, but I hate calling it global warming because it is really more just climate change. Some people obviously just don't understand it if you call it global warming, because then they just point to this. But that's the point of this article. I would definitely encourage everybody to read this. There's some really great stuff in here, and I think this one is great. He's talking about Trump tweeting a thing out that says, "What the hell is going on with global warming? Please come back fast. We need you." And then I love here. Oh yeah, and there's a spelling mistake. It's global warming instead of warming. Neglect for the moment that global warming isn't a thing, and that, as we have come to expect, almost none of the claims in Trump's tweets are true. The coldest wind chill temperatures recorded for the Midwest are close to -70, which is -57 Celsius, and for the U.S. overall below -100. But might he have a point? For example, if we are seeing more frequent cold extremes, would this contradict the theory of human-caused global warming? No, scientists increasingly think that climate change may cause a more frequent break-on of the polar vortex of the northern hemisphere, the tight band of winds in the upper atmosphere that typically confine the cold North Pole air masses to the Arctic, loosely associated with the jet stream. So he says, the amplified warming of the Arctic caused by the melting of sea ice reduces the temperature contrast between the equator and the pole. It is that contrast that maintains the polar vortex and jet stream. As the vortex breaks down, the jet stream slows and exhibits broader north-south wiggles, just as a river crossing almost level territory exhibits broad meanders as it snakes its way to the coastline. So then the part that made really awesome sense here is he's saying, well, so why are people saying this? If there is good science to support this. So I love this part. He says, let us return to Trump's tweet, for it does not stand in isolation. It is part of a several years old pattern of denying the basic scientific evidence for human-caused climate change. Trump is plainly not the genius he has claimed to be, but he knows that climate change is real. Get this next part. This is great. We know this because he cited it as a reason to be granted a special dispensation to build a wall to protect his golf course in Ireland from the damaging effects of a rise in sea level. I love it. I love when somebody finds the monetary incentive that these people have to protect their own interests. There, he acknowledges and basically says, like, yeah, climate change, blah blah blah, the sea level rise. But when it comes to the country and what is good for like millions of people, he's just gonna toe the business line and basically crack a joke about the climate change. I mean, this is just absolutely infuriating. It's incredibly sad. But I think this is a good article. Definitely read through. There's some other good examples here, and talking about like what science says versus what idiotic people kind of tend to say in stark contrast to that. So definitely check this out. I think it's pretty cool. Next up, global warming. New supersonic airplanes would be terrible for the environment, study warns. If anybody isn't old enough to remember, there used to be a supersonic jet that you could fly. It was the Concorde airplanes, and Air France ran those, and apparently British Airways too, I guess it says down here. British Airways and Air France ran the Concorde supersonic service from '76 until 2003. There was a horrific accident that blew up one of those jets, and it killed everybody. I don't know if it blew up, it crashed and then blew up, whatever, but yeah, like it says here, 113 people died, and then since then they haven't flown those planes. Now, if you think about like climate change and the burning of fossil fuels and stuff, flying is already one of those things where a lot of people will say it's totally like unethical to fly. You shouldn't be wasting so much fuel and blah blah blah, especially for just like going for kicks somewhere, going on vacation or whatever. And the thing that you realize though is that flying these supersonic jets is an even worse thing for the environment, because they basically have to get that much faster, and there's also usually worse fuel economy even above and beyond that, because they They count it per person, which is kind of natural. Like, you want to know how many people you're able to transport for a given amount of fuel. And the fact is, these planes will carry less people. So here it is. The International Council on Clean Transportation estimates the new supersonic jets will consume as much as 5 to 7 times as much fuel per passenger as subsonic aircraft on the same routes. That's partly because they're going faster requires more fuel, and partly because the supersonic jets are expected to transport significantly fewer passengers per plane. And despite this, there are several companies now that want to start flying these, flights with the, with the express purpose of getting people to their destination faster. It's basically a bunch of rich people that just can't be bothered to fly, for the 8 hours or whatever it is on a, cross-Atlantic flight, for example, just like all the regular people. So here it is, adding these planes, which would be 5 to 7 times as carbon intensive as comparable subsonic jets, on top of that, just to save a few hours flying over the Atlantic, seems problematic to me. So this was from an advocate basically saying that, like, look, they shouldn't be doing this. And yeah, so I don't know, it's crazy. I hope they don't really do it unless they're able to show some kind of way to, like, reduce the amount of fuel required, so that if it's the same per person, like, maybe I would be okay with it. But honestly, I kind of don't think you can just defy the laws of physics to be able to go faster without needing more energy for it. So yeah, anyway, this kind of goes into the category in my mind of, like, the wealthy will just do whatever the heck they want and damn be everybody else, because, like, I got money, so I don't care. Crazy stuff. Along those lines of crazy stuff, this article talks about how meat-eating humans and the push for certain body parts of certain animals in the use of medicinal, kind of traditional things, like for the Chinese and other people across the globe, is causing the biggest animals to be hunted into extinction. So they're talking about elephants and these really giant salamanders that are found in like Asian regions, and a whole bunch of other kinds of things. So I guess these things are, like, as big as people, these salamanders, human-sized amphibians. They're eaten as a delicacy in parts of Asia. The elephants, as you know, people hunt them for their ivory, people hunt them for their various body parts. It's really, really crazy, very sad. And they're talking about other animals that have already been hunted into extinction recently. So yeah, it's just basically, like, more craziness, people killing whales, and just driving these animals into extinction. So here's the main kind of takeaway. Up to 60% of all large animals could be wiped out entirely or brought to the brink of extinction in coming years, according to the team at the Oregon State University, which published their findings in the journal Conservation Letters. And yeah, they're basically making the case that, like, these animals are really, really close to being extinct. And I love this quote here at the end: minimizing the direct killing of these vertebrate animals is an important conservation tactic that might save many of these iconic species, as well as all of the contributions they make to their ecosystems. Forget all these trophy hunter people, what they say, like, okay, I'm going to pay this money and then I'll get to shoot this elephant, but because of all the money I've spent, then they can save more. And it's like, no, I'm sorry, that's not how it works. All right. This one was an interesting article. So a survey found that 114, what was it? I don't know, what was it? 114 million Americans will be trying to eat more vegan food in order to achieve their health goals. So that's, basically 40% of the participants felt motivated to make a diet or lifestyle change. 34%, roughly 1/3, considered eating more plant-based foods to achieve this change. And so that's, I guess, how they're arriving at this figure. I mean, this is great in one sense, and in one sense that I'm going to talk about, I kind of worry, knowing how kind of poorly most American people eat. Like, we already see so much obesity and illness and sickness. I sometimes worry when I see messages like this, like, I'm going to eat more vegan food. It's not going to come at the cost of eating less animal-based food. I think it's just sometimes I worry people will just eat vegan food in addition to animal foods, which is probably, you know, not going to solve their health problems, and if anything, it might contribute to their obesity. And then I worry that they might start blaming the vegan foods. So it's definitely a little bit of a concern I have. And the reason why I say this is going to be this next story here. This BBC article had some interesting facts about which countries eat the most meat. And what they show is, you know, that meat production is actually going up. It's actually increasing. It's not going down. So despite what you hear about a lot of like people saying like, oh, I'm eating less meat, or I barely eat any meat, or whatever, in a lot of these developed areas of the world, and in fact the problem is that the developing areas of the world, people are really starting to increase their meat production and meat consumption. And it's really crazy here. So it says rising incomes. What we do know is that global meat consumption has increased rapidly over the past 50 years. Meat production today is nearly 5 times higher than in the early 1960s, from 70 million tons to more than 330 million tons in 2017. So it's absolutely crazy, and I do worry that yeah, people, you know, like I say in the previous article, they might eat more vegan food, but it should be, you know, coming along with eating less animal foods, and right now I don't see that trend, so I do worry about that. It's really pretty crazy. And you know, they give some figures here for like in like Asia and China and a few other places. Let's see. Yeah, in 2013, the most recent year available, the U.S. and Australia topped the tables for annual meat consumption, alongside New Zealand and Argentina. Both countries topped more than 100 kilograms per person. That's like what, 220 pounds per person a year, the equivalent to about 50 chickens or half a cow each. That is just insane. Yeah, basically, you know, you can see it across the West. Here's a map. The deep red is showing, you know, the amount, I guess this is per kilogram. So you can see that basically the rich areas of the world are just going crazy and eating tons and tons of meat. The average Ethiopian consumes just 7 kilograms, Rwandans 8 kilograms, and Nigerians 9 kilograms. This is 10 times less than the average European. For those in low-income countries, meat is still very much a luxury. And then they talk about yeah, China and Brazil, because they've seen significant economic growth in recent decades. A large rise in meat consumption has accompanied that. And you can see their charts are just going, you know, straight up. Like it's horrible. China, Brazil, they're just going straight up. Canada kind of had like a little bit of a peak, and they're, I don't know, it seems like pretty, you know, steady Eddie level. The U.S. is definitely, you know, a little bit of a downtrend right now in just the past, you know, couple of years leading to 2013. But overall, though, it's still very high, and, you know, still higher than it was back in the 60s. And here it says, by contrast, the average person in 1960s China consumed less than 5 kilograms a year. By the late 1980s, this had risen to 20 kilograms, and the last few decades, this has risen to over 60 kilograms. So they're not that far off. They're eating about 2/3 as much as the people in the, you know, in the highest groups. And yeah, I don't really see why they would stop, because very much in a lot of these developing countries, it is a status symbol. So once you have enough money, you start eating meat every day. And yeah, here it is. Same thing happened in Brazil, where meat consumption has almost doubled since 1990. That's only like, you know, whatever that is, 30 years. Crazy stuff. They talk about India being an exception. Even though incomes have tripled, meat consumption hasn't followed. They do mention that it's a misconception that the majority of India is vegetarian. Actually, 2/3 of Indians do eat some meat, but they don't tend to eat all types of meat. So many people, because of religious reasons, don't eat you know, certain kinds of meat, whether that be cow or pork, you know, pig. And so it says at less than 4 kilograms per person, it is the lowest in the world. So they are eating meat, but it's very little meat. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. And, you know, they're raising the question, is meat consumption falling in the West? And not really, according to the statistics. And they're showing that basically people are just switching to poultry. So they're eating slightly less red meat in the form of you know, beef and pork. So they're eating less cows and pigs, but they are eating more chickens, more birds, turkeys, etc. And I talked about this in the last stream, where chicken has become the most common, meat, and it's the most common bird all across the whole world. So yeah, I do worry about this. I think a lot of times when you talk to people, especially when they find out you're a vegan, they immediately kind of try to, I don't know if it's like endear themselves to you, or they just want to appease their own kind of conscience or whatever, but they immediately tell you like, well, I don't even really eat that much meat, I barely eat any meat or whatever, but the figures really speak for themselves, and it doesn't seem to be the case. So definitely look through this. It's pretty interesting stuff, and I do worry, like I said, about people getting the message that like, oh, just eat more vegan stuff, especially if they're eating vegan junk food. I do worry that if they don't see health improvements, or if their weight doesn't go down and they are obese, they're gonna just say like, well, it's it's just like not good. But yeah, anyway, here's a bit of good news. This wonderful opportunity has come up with a very, very awesome spokesperson. So if anybody hasn't heard of Genesis Butler, she is 12 years old, and she is a vegan activist trying to get the whole world to go vegan. And she has already said at this young age that she would love to become the president at some point. And she is actually calling on the Pope to go vegan for the time of Lent. So there is a effort with the what is the animal group? Shoot, I can't remember. Oh yeah, here it is. Part of the $1 Million Vegan Campaign. And there's a lot of obviously big name supporters of this, but she has called on the Pope to go and ditch all animal products for the period of Lent. If anybody's not aware, during Lent, Catholic people, well, Christians the world over, really, not just Catholics, but they usually will do a period of fasting, where at least on some of the days they don't eat meat. It varies between religions. Some people still eat fish, but people do still eat other animal products like dairy and eggs and all this other kind of stuff. So it is certainly an interesting idea to get the Pope to go fully vegan for that 40 days of the fasting period. That would be awesome. I've done videos before about fasting during Lent and fasting in general, so check that out if you want to see it. I have it on my channel. And kudos to this girl. She's pretty amazing. She's been an activist since she was 6 years old. She's got a TED Talk. She basically made the ethical connection when she was eating chicken McNuggets, and she asked her mom like, hey, where do these come from? And her mom explained that it's like, yeah, we kill chickens and then we make them into these little nuggets. And she's like, whoa, I never want to eat that again. And then later on, I love this quote here. It's a few years later, when my mom was nursing my little sister, I asked her where my milk came from, and found out it was from a cow. I don't want to drink a different species milk, so I went vegan at age 6. So it's pretty awesome. Her parents are obviously pretty cool people. They were very supportive of her, and she's done tons and tons of activism of various different kinds. Hats off to her, kudos to her, and yeah, check it out. And then, of course, to counter this, we have somebody like Piers Morgan, who basically immediately said, like, look, I'll pay $1 million instead to have vegans shut the heck up and stop carrying on. They've had their month, Veganuary's over, and it's time for them to be quiet and leave the Pope alone. I think a couple things about this. One is that it's pretty funny that the guy has $1 million to just basically, joke around with. I think that probably tells you a lot about kind of, what kind of economic scale he's used to dealing in. And even if he doesn't, I just think it's funny that he's joking around about it. And then the co-host, I think, had a pretty good little, thing where she said, look, if all the vegans chip in $1, we could easily pay you to shut up about anti-veganism for like $1 million. And he's like, no, my price is $100 million. So I think if anybody, kind of takes this seriously, like, I wonder if, can he be bought at $100 million? It's like $1 million for the Pope, but $100 million for Piers. So I don't know. I guess he has a price at least. Like he's open about that. I think that's pretty funny. Guy's a piece of work though. All right, so this is the kind of more serious article talking about this offer. The offer is really that they will pay $1 million to a charity of the Pope's choice if he follows through and goes vegan for Lent. So I think that's pretty cool. I wonder if he'll take it. I don't know. The Pope Francis has actually had many different speeches and kind of like official like church, I don't know, kind of like writings about being good stewards of the earth and treating animals right. And I've done a video about this as well. So I think, he's at the very least, I would say, receptive to hearing this kind of message. And I think it was delivered in a very nice way. And also the kind of incentive of like, wow, I could get $1 million that I could, donate to charity of my choice. That would actually be pretty nice. So I wonder if he'll actually think about it. And that would be great. Perpetually It says, don't even get me started on Piers. I can't even. Yeah, that guy's, he's really a piece of work. I don't know how anybody can take him seriously. Excuse me. And yeah, so basically the thing that got me about this article is like, it's a pretty good article. They're talking about how it could have a really good impact. There's 1.2 billion Roman Catholics in the world, and the Pope is their head in the religious community, and that would be a great message. So I wonder if people would follow his lead. So yeah, here it is. Matthew Glover, CEO of $1 Million Vegan and who co-founded the Veganuary campaign, said the Pope had been selected for his environmental leadership and influence, particularly in South America, where great forests continue to be cut down. Blah blah blah. So this was like a really good article, and then the part that I wanted to show you guys is like, and then what do they have right in the middle of it is a little mini intro to an article that the Guardian has also done, which is raising the question that have vegan protests gone too far? And I find this so frustrating that you have like an article that's like almost pretty kind of like good, and I would say like pretty decent at painting veganism in a good light and talking about the environmental and the ethical kind of things, and talking about how they're gonna put all this money up and get it to a charity, and then you kind of ruin it with this like vegan graffiti and butchered barbecued dogs. Have vegan protests gone too far? There was a big stink about somebody, I guess, like did kind of like a fake barbecue dog as part of one of their outreach attempts in the public, and I guess it upset obviously like children who saw it and stuff. I don't think it was a real dog, by the way, but it was made to look like a real dog, and it was being barbecued, and then people got upset by that, as they should. But if it was a pig, they'd be like, oh, let me get some. So it's kind of like, obviously there's a reason why they did it. It's to try to break the cognitive dissonance and get people to think. But I'm just saying, like, in this article, it was like really out of place to just have that in there, and I just think it was weird, and I don't think these kinds of things usually happen by mistake. Next up, I'm going to get to kind of the centerpiece of today's stream. We are in February, and I want to talk about Februdairy. So if anybody doesn't know about Februdairy, I did a whole series of videos about Februdairy last year, and it was an attempt by the dairy industry to get people to consume more milk, more dairy products, eat more cheese, yogurts, etc. And it was kind of supposed to be styled on the social media campaigns like Veganuary, where they wanted to use social media and get the dairy farmers involved and get people on Twitter who love eating cheese and drinking milk and all this kind of stuff to be supportive of the farmers, and it was going to be this great thing. And lo and behold, the vegans of social media basically hijacked the hashtag Februdairy and started to use it instead to get the message out there about the cruelty that's inherently, I guess like a part of the dairy production system. And I did quite a few videos on this. A bunch of people that I'm friends with, and I'm sure a lot of you guys follow, did videos on this, and we were very active on Twitter and other forms of social media, and really got it out there. And I think it was an epic fail. All the top trending Februdairy posts were from vegans sharing the story about how evil and unhealthy and environmentally destructive dairy production is, instead of like the cute, like, oh, the farmer's lying, like, here's this cute cow, dairy's good for you kind of story that they wanted to get out. So that was last year. And this year, There is a person I follow on Twitter. She runs under the name The Paw Report. Her name's Rachel. She has this blog, thepawreport.org. I definitely recommend people check this out. Really, really good stuff on here. And she came up with this idea to get a new hashtag trending on Twitter, because it's actually very difficult to get an old existing hashtag trending. I didn't know about this, but it's pretty good kind of like you know, way to hype the message by getting a new tag. So they came up with this idea. I don't know if it was her directly, but she was the one who kind of told me about it, and she's got this blog post, Why I Ditched Dairy. That is the hashtag. And there was a hey Sarah, yeah, Paw Report is awesome. So if anybody, and Conscientious Sarah is awesome as well. You can follow her on Twitter too. Yeah, like awesome posts, really great stuff. And Rachel went out of her way and like just talked to a bunch of people, and I talked to as many people as I could that I follow and I talk with regularly on Twitter, and everybody started going crazy on Wednesday this week using this hashtag Why I Ditched Dairy. And yeah, like just, you know, really cool. Like I definitely think it got it to trend, and there were like a lot of great posts, and of course a lot of upset, you know, dairy farmers and people supporting you know, animal exploitation. Basically we're like, you know, what's up with these, you know, silly vegans and what have you. But anyway, I'll put a link to all of this stuff so you can see it. I've also collected kind of my previous videos from last year about Februdairy, so you can see the ones that I did here. If you if you go to this link, and I've also pinned it to my top thing on Twitter, so if anybody who goes to my profile, this is like the first tweet that you'll see. And I've got one video about the environmental damage caused by dairy production, and I've got another video about the health consequences of dairy consumption, and I've got another video that talks about strictly just the ethics. There is nothing you know, graphic in any of these videos, so even in the ethical one I talk about the cruelty involved in dairy production, but I don't show any kind of, you know, graphic imagery. I definitely think it's good for people if you want to use this as a resource. If you have anybody that you want to send it to that, you know, maybe might not be able to handle watching like a PETA style video, or, you know, something like that where it's like very graphic and the, you know, the baby calves are being torn away and beaten and whatever. Like, I talk about it, but I don't show anything. So if anybody, you know, wants to use that, feel free to, you know, forward this. And then the last video I have in there is basically talking about, well, okay, so what do dairy farmers do if we, you know, all stop consuming their products? Like, are they all going to go hungry and, you know, not be able to make money anymore? And I basically made a video talking about how they can switch to veganic farming. I give really great examples and talk about, you know, kind of dairy production places that have already done that and switched to nut milks instead, and how it's profitable and it's a booming industry, etc., etc. So definitely check that out. That video in particular is also really good for any activists out there trying to push a good vegan message. And if you've come across people like in the grass-fed, I only eat sustainable meat you know, category of people, I give really good examples in there for answers on, yeah, but I live in upstate New York, you know, where am I going to get fruits and veggies in the winter, blah, blah, blah. I have really good answers in that video. You can definitely feel free to use that. And the last part that I wanted to mention just very briefly for just comedy relief here, I got a wonderful little reply on my thread from a person called Barbara, and basically linked a story about Nepali migrant workers dying in Malaysia. They're picking fruit and veg and what have you, and they're being exploited horrifically and being underpaid and all this kind of stuff. And she asks, who cares about the guy who picks the veg? I kind of went through the profile and found that, yeah, this person is just very clearly like just pushing a pro-dairy message. And I just replied, I said, vegans care for all sentient beings, humans too. Try it sometime and be amazed that you're capable of caring about more than just one issue. And check my videos. I advocate for people to grow food in their backyard. Animal agriculture exploits poor people to benefit the rich. Then she replies back, so you only eat food you grow yourself? No plant juice, no tempeh, no condiments, nothing you have to purchase? What are you doing about those exploited poor people? And I said, I grow as much of my own food as I can, and I encourage others to do the same. You can see my harvest videos here. I also donate time, effort, and money regularly to people in need. What do you do for exploited people or animals? Consuming milk doesn't help either of those groups. And of course, no reply, and she's blocked me since. So it's actually very funny. This is exactly kind of the kind of response that you have seen throughout much of this campaign. Sarah, I'm sure you can probably chime in because I've seen some of the people replying, but it's just the typical like defense mechanism in play. I think for some of these people, some of them are obviously trolls, and I don't know if this person falls into that category or not, but I think for some people it's like this defense mechanism. They're literally kind of like, okay, I can't deal with this because I would have to admit that I'm doing something that's like kind of immoral and unethical or isn't, you know, good for the environment or whatever. So I'll just point out something that this other person probably, you know, falls into the, you know, kind of like, you know, I buy cashews or something. So the poor exploited workers who are making the cashews. And then, you know, never mind the fact that she probably eats cashews too. Hey, Leon, thanks for joining. And you know, so never mind that kind of thing, but just, you know, this is the kind of mental gymnastics people have to jump through to kind of justify, like, you know, they're not going to do anything about the people who are being exploited to grow cashews or avocados or whatever it is, but they're dang sure not going to give up their dairy consumption either. So it's like they'll just do neither and just try to point a finger at you and say, well, you're being a hypocrite because you can't fix everything. So it's like, okay, like that does. I don't know. I just thought that was funny. So anyway, next, this was a pretty cool business development. So in, I don't think they have these in the U.S., or maybe they do. I don't know if you guys have these like Magnum ice cream bars. I think I've only seen them here in Europe, but they're really popular, and like you can find them in like just about any like grocery store, like out in like if you go to like you know, like Lake Butler or some resort area, they'll have them in like the little, you know, frozen, you know, kind of section for just like grabbing, you know, when you're sitting on the beach and stuff. And the Magnum company or whatever brand is now set to use a pea protein dairy replacement, and they're going to have a vegan Magnum launch. And there's going to be a bunch of different flavors. I don't even know what they are. But basically the dairy farmers are up in arms and basically, you know, trying to get it banned, even though they have not even labeled it as an ice cream. They've even said that it's a velvety plant-based product that gives a creamy enjoy without the desire for dairy. So apparently it's a Unilever company. Think what you will about it, but I think it's good that there are more vegan options, and I think it's also, you know, just really showing you kind of the desperate nature of the dairy industry, where they are, you know, really kind of like struggling. It's like they have no good answer to any of these kinds of things about the environmental impact, about the ethics, about the health. So what do? They try to get things banned, and you can't sell, you know, oat milk as milk because it's like it didn't come from the mammary secretions of a cow and all this kind of stuff. It's like ridiculous. This face you might find familiar. A while back, Joey Carbstrong was on the, I forget what, I don't know the name of that show, but anyway, there was like some like, you know, morning talk show kind of thing, and this guy and his wife were on as the you know, farmers who have been abused by the vegans and all this kind of stuff. So this is that guy. Yeah, Bungay dairy farmer Johnny Crickmore, whose family suffered vicious online abuse from vegan groups in 2018. This was, you know, I was like, man, that guy looks so familiar, but that's the guy. Anyway, there is a website called Project CAF. They have made an interactive map that you can go and it shows you the location of more than 9,000 dairy farms, and it uses only public data published by the government, by the way. So it's just literally taking publicly available data, but just consolidating it into a map view, and people can click around on it. And obviously the organizers have said that it's a lawful and peaceful animal rights campaign whose goal is to direct action exposing the atrocities of the dairy industry through citizen journalism, peaceful protesting, and outreach. They're encouraging basically people to go to these dairies and document abuses if they see them. They are saying to do it within a, you know, the confines of the law. So like not to do anything illegal. They're not saying to break in. They're just saying, like, if you just walk by or you're on a path and you can see the cows being, you know, whatever, mistreated, to document it with video and, you know, get it out to the public. And, you know, it just, obviously the dairy farmers are upset about this, and here's a quote: "As a dairy farmer, it makes me feel quite angry and guilty, even though I don't want to have anything to be guilty about. Our cows are really happy and healthy, and 99.99% of dairy farmers really care about their animals, so it is very hurtful to say they are cruel. They are saying they are doing everything by the law and by the rules, but they know very well that people who read this won't stay to the rules. You cannot get good footage of a dairy from a footpath unless the path runs right through a farm. Some people are going to trespass." Obviously, I don't support trespassing per se, but I think, you know, there's enough abuse sometimes that you can see from literally a mile away from these places. The calves being taken away, the cows maybe crying out for the calves. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you could probably see, and I know these guys don't want to have any of the you know, system be shown and to yeah, to be, you know, really out there for the public. You know, if you have a business and your business is the exploitation of, you know, animals, like, there's no nice way to sugarcoat that, and I think that's what they know inherently, that this is not going to come off, you know, well for them, even if they aren't breaking any laws and even if they aren't doing anything. So they're just trying to protect their industry. But yeah, I think this is I think it's, like, I support the effort. I think getting information out there, especially if it's only sharing information that's already publicly available, I don't see anything wrong with it, but obviously the dairy industry is going to be fighting that. And then, you know, counter to what that guy says, here is a brutal example of abuse happening, you know, out and out abuse. This guy had previously gotten in trouble because he had posted some pictures about a cow that he had painted terrible message on, and as you can see here. And then after the paint wore off from this particular cow, he painted the cow again, and the other people who had worked with this person on the dairy farm had basically put in complaints about him being abusive to the animals. So he would regularly hit them with pipes and sticks and all sorts of, you know, really kind of like bad stuff that he was doing to the animals. And what had happened is they got tired that no reprimand had happened to the person, and one of the people was a whistleblower, and they got sick of seeing the abuse, so they helped, well, I don't know if they did it directly, but they worked with an animal rights group, and they got hidden cameras. The rights group, I should say, did this. I don't know if the whistleblower did it. They got cameras hidden on this guy's farm that then you can actually see the clips in this report, which is quite shocking and very, very sad to see. I wouldn't really recommend it to somebody who doesn't have a, you know, pretty strong constitution for that kind of thing. But really good report by whoever put this together. My hat's off to this journalist. I think this is her, the lady in the video, Melanie Reed. She goes on with a hidden, like, body cam to the farm and finds the guy and starts talking to him. And at first, she just asks him about the, you know, the social media picture that spread around about this cow. And he's pretty, like, he seems pretty jovial and kind of happy about the whole thing. And you can see he's kind of, like, almost proud of it. And it's kind of lighthearted in the sense that, like, this isn't, you know, the worst of what he's done. And as she kind of starts directing the conversation to, well, what about, you know, beating the cows and this, that, and the other, you can just see his whole demeanor shift. I mean, I actually feared for her safety. Like, I would think this guy is very dangerous and would definitely be, you know, like a loose cannon around people as well. And really great reporting, good journalism. Definitely, you know, share this if you have people that deny the abuses that go on in the industry. And the reason I say this is because a lot of times what you'll see in your interactions with people who are in the dairy industry specifically, they will always say, no, we love our cows, and, you know, that's just a crazy person, this guy's just a bad apple. And the problem is, if you actually check this out, is that despite all the complaints and the video evidence, this farm still employs this guy. He has not been arrested, he has not been fired from his job, and he still works there, and he still beats the cows. So it's like, okay, he's a bad apple that you continue to pay and you don't prosecute. And so what does that say about your industry? Like, I mean, I'm sorry, even when I was omnivorous, even when I was drinking a ton of dairy, if I found out something like this happened at a dairy that I was consuming milk from, like, I would be like absolutely offended. I would be like, I'm never buying milk from your place again. Like, this is beyond ridiculous. This isn't even just the systemic abuse that happens in this industry. This is like out and out. The guy's beating the cows with sticks and metal pipes. They're literally limping along. Like, you can see them in the video. So just absolutely shocking. And of course, you know, the dairy industry doesn't want you to see this. This is why they have the ag-gag laws. This is why they fight the, you know, the people who are trying to get the ag-gag laws, you know, lifted. I mean, it's just really, really crazy stuff. So check that out if you get a chance. This one was an interesting article. This next one here about dairy. There is a dairy farmer who is basically trialing a new method of keeping his dairy calves with the moms. So he's not separating them. And there's a very telling part here in the interview. It's a little couple-minute video, you know, thing. The interviewer asks about kind of, you know, well, how did he come up with this or why? And he literally, like, admits that, like, he got really emotionally worked up over seeing the cows bawling out for their babies, sometimes for days and days and days. And this is another thing that I want to quickly point out. A lot of dairy farmers will tell you, hi, meat is murder, thanks for joining. A lot of dairy farmers will point out to you that, like, oh, you know, the cows don't even care when you take their babies. And it's true, as far as I've seen from several pretty reliable sources and even some video, you know, evidence. Some cows, when you take away their babies, they don't react at all, seemingly. They just go off and go into the food shed and they start eating, and they just don't even, like, basically notice that their calves got taken. And what I have read and what I have understood from, you know, talking to people who really know cows and their behavior, and it makes sense just being a parent, what happens is these cows have been impregnated and, you know, basically had their babies taken away so many times that sometimes by the third, fourth, etc. time that this is happening, fifth time this is happening, they're literally so, you know, traumatized by the whole thing that they can't even, like, you know, feel that kind of, like, motherly bond anymore. And I mean, imagine if this was, you know, happening to people. Like, at some point, you know, like, there would be a mechanism, you know, of self-preservation where you just kind of tune the whole thing out almost. And I'm certain that that is what's happening. But anyway, this guy even admits that, you know, most of the cows, that is not the case, and they bawl for days. So that's a direct quote. Some mothers will bawl for days. So, so yeah, basically, you know, in a nutshell, like, this guy starts leaving the calves with the mother, and he's getting less milk production because obviously the cows are, you know, suckling and getting some of the milk. There's still, you know, more than the milk is left over. But what's happening is he's going to be allowing the calves to suckle with the mother for, I forget how long it is in the video. I think it might be 12 months or something. And then he's basically going to send those cows off, the calves off for slaughter in the veal industry. And basically he's expecting that those profits will recuperate the amount of money he's losing in the lower milk production. So make no mistake about it, this guy is still every much as, you know, abusive towards and exploitive of his animals, but he just personally couldn't handle the you know, additional kind of insult to the injury, which is that when you take away, you know, a mother's baby, she'll cry for days after the baby. And so he's like found another way that he can exploit the animals instead, which gives him the same amount of profit, but without having to take away the babies, and then they can still be together for a little bit longer. Is it better? I don't know. But, you know, definitely an interesting thing where he's very clearly understanding that what he's doing is wrong, and he's just looking for another way to kind of go about his business. It's very strange. Absolutely, meat is murder. It's like, okay, it might be better for those few months because, you know, they didn't get killed right away and they also got to be together with their mom, but it's still just as exploitive and just as cruel. This was a fantastic article. This was, again, in The Guardian. They talk about how industry has pushed for successfully now through the U.S. Department of Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue basically a reversal of what was a ban on non skim milk or whatever. Is basically like the more full fat milk, flavored milks into school programs. So okay, cool. Hey, Start Chill, welcome. Meat is Murder says they are trying to justify themselves and come across as caring. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the guy did care about hearing the cows bawling. If you watch the video, I think you'll see he's genuinely worked up about it, even in recounting the story. But he's not worked up about it enough to stop exploiting the animals, and so it's very clearly like I think it's legit. Like he's actually sorry for them, but not sorry enough to like stop killing them. And Start Chill on the topic of dairy, have some map data to show you. Cool, send it over. I'll definitely take a look. Sorry, still getting over a little bit of the flu stuff. So yeah, so this is just really crazy. Where I guess he had gone to a board of directors meeting from a bunch of dairy lobbyists, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue raised a glass of chocolate milk. Literally raised a glass of chocolate milk. So these guys are so bought and paid for by industry that there is literally, like, this is the quote here, he grabbed a glass of chocolate milk and made a chocolate milk toast to our CEO and our board. Carrie Fry, the Senior Vice President of Regulatory Affairs and at the International Dairy Foods Association, told The Guardian. So they're not even denying it. This is the part that kills me about this. It's like these people are so in bed with industry that they literally go to their, like, trade board of directors, whatever, organizations, and they will literally be like, yeah, here's the business, and they reversed this thing, and they are basically going to be able to allow fattier chocolate milk and strawberry flavored milks to be sold to roughly 31 million kids in school cafeterias. So that's the joke. I mean, it's like unbelievable. And you can see some of the numbers here that really go into this. So you can see it says a handful of heavyweight lobbyists were spending millions in support of the interests of milk, cheese, and yogurt producers in the U.S. The IDFA, that's the group that was saying that the secretary was doing the chocolate milk toast for, spent $1.3 million lobbying on a variety of issues, including school milk, according to Senate lobbying disclosures. It gave another $260,000 to candidates, 2/3 of whom were Republican, through its Political Action Committee, according to the Center for Responsive Politics. The Dairy Farmers of America spent almost $1 million, so it's $924,000, including on school milk, according to CRP. So you add this all up, it's, what is that, a little over $2.5 million? Yeah, like a little over $2.5 million, let's say. And that same year, the Trump administration bought $50 million worth of milk in August to give to food banks and schools. Now, in September, it also announced $127 million in direct payments to dairy farmers. Somebody who's good at math, help me out here. Think of the industry that you could be in, where you can take, $2.5 million and turn it into $177 million. That's a pretty dang good return. I love that, like, these articles exist. I just can't understand, like, how people can see this and not put two and two together, that it's literally like you have these companies who are, taking $2.5 million and turning it into 177. I mean, this is like when the banks got bailed out after their horrifically, you know, abusive loans came crashing down and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, some of them got hit with these fines afterward, you know, for doing all these kind of trading violations and exploiting people and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, some of them got hit with pretty big fines, even to the tune of like, you know, millions of dollars and tens of millions of dollars. But as I pointed out to people at that time, think about being able to run a business where you can, over the course of, say, you know, let's say a few years, I don't know, 4 or 5 years in the good times, bank $4, $5, $6 billion, some of these banks, and then at the end of it, you get slapped with like a $150 million fine, and you're like, okay, hey, and it's like, okay, yeah, like sure, if I can make like $6 billion and I have to pay back $150 million, like that's dang good business, man. All I gotta do is pay these politicians $2.5 million ish, and I get 177 back. Like, it's like, how can people not see this? And I just don't understand it. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is like right in, you know, it's like openly talked about. There's like probably pictures of the press conference where they held it together. It's like, and you know, it's like this guy tweeted out, nutritious school meals don't do anyone any good if the kids just throw them into the trash. So we're empowering local schools by providing more options to serve healthy and appetizing food. Now, I'm sorry, but chocolate milk can be neither of those things. It is not healthy and it is not appetizing, especially when you know what goes into dairy production. But yeah, they're basically going to be giving kids even more unhealthy options for basically making a bunch of people more rich, including the filthy politicians who are just so beyond corrupt it's not even funny. So yeah, I mean, look through this article, read through this. I mean, there is just more and more stuff in here. It turns your stomach. This is a great article. I just can't believe like more people don't see this. Hi, Angry Vegan. Happy Februdairy to you too. Yeah, so now Februdairy, going back to the term, it was actually thought up by a person in the dairy industry called Bovi Diva on Twitter. Her name is Jude Capper, Dr. Jude Capper, and she is a real piece of work. I've done kind of some videos where I actually cited research done by Jude Capper, which is pretty cool because it further kind of proves that the idyllic farms from yesteryear were actually more environmentally destructive than the ones we have now. The large-scale, you know, factory farming of dairy is actually less environmentally damaging than what they had in the 40s, and her own dairy industry research proves it. So it's really crazy, and I did a video about that too, so check that out. But yeah, anyway, like she had a conference that they held in, where was this? Yeah, Glasgow's Dairy Conference, and she was one of the people on the panel. And yeah, they're here she is. Clapper said their collective ethical image, or very loud voices, this is talking about the vegans, is making an impact. There is a need in the dairy sector for more myth busting, Capper said. If consumers don't buy our products, milk, cream, butter, cheese, we will not have a dairy industry in 5 to 10 years. Let's hope so. Let's hope Dr. Capper's right. I hope maybe even sooner, but interesting article. So definitely happy to see, you know, oh, this was from last year. I'm sorry. I'm giving you guys old news. Man, I thought this was a new story. Okay, so this was probably what was right before February of last year. I apologize. Hopefully nobody unsubscribes because of this little error on my part. Sorry about that, guys. That's old news. That was from last year. But hopefully it's still true. And if it was 5 years then maybe it's only 4 years now. All right. Next, Chobani. If anybody was a heavy consumer of dairy like I was back in the day, perpetually annoyed is gone. That's it. Unsub. Yeah. Guys, don't. I always get worried when people joke. Don't take my jokes seriously. All right. So if anybody remembers back when they were eating a lot of dairy, well, I actually loved the Chobani Greek yogurts, and And they're making some vegan options now. They're basically saying they're going to have 9 new flavors, and they've been working on coming up with like some super ridiculous, like better than all other yogurt, you know, vegan yogurts out there kind of type marketing here. So they're basically saying that they're going to be the bee's knees, and look for these flavors: blueberry, peach, slightly sweet plain, strawberry and vanilla single serve cups, and mango, slightly sweet plain, strawberry and vanilla chai probiotic drinks. So yeah, they're saying like it's going to be awesome and absolutely delicious and blah blah blah, nutritious, and it's going to be all plant-based and you know, similar in texture to the Greek yogurt that they have. It says the base is made from coconut cream, which yields a texture similar to non-Greek yogurt. Sorry. So that's pretty interesting. Let's see. Leon says, I had Alpro coconut yogurt. It was really bad. Oh, I actually like the Alpro stuff. My kids like the various flavored ones too. So I think we have like the blueberry, and there's like a cranberry one, and I like those. There's a Joya type that I actually like. It's a plain like soy yogurt. You can actually kind of have a little bit of the taste of the soy, but it's not too bad, and I really like it. It reminds me kind of a lot of like a real plain, you know, regular kind of like yogurt. And yeah, I don't know, if you take just like jam or something and throw it in there and mix it up, it's pretty much just like the fruit based ones. Oh, it's really fat, the coconut one. Yeah, I mean the coconut one, some people like that because it's more fatty and more kind of like the full fat dairy. But I don't know, I think yeah, just everybody's taste is different. Meat is Murder stays away from the coconut milk yogurt cheeses. I had high cholesterol. Yeah, you definitely, that's a good move, Meat is Murder, because they do have lots of saturated fat in the coconut oil, the coconut milk. All of those things really do have high saturated fat. So if somebody does have high cholesterol, it is definitely good to stay away from that. It is still a very highly processed food. I mean, I kind of view the plant-based yogurts and you know, dairy products as really just like occasional treats. Like if somebody doesn't make it a regular, like kind of like go overboard kind of, you know, part of their diet, I don't think it's really that harmful, because at least it still doesn't have cholesterol in it. But it's certainly, I wouldn't call it health food by any means. I think it's just more like a treat that you can have occasionally. Hi Bev. Don't worry about being late, that's fine. Let's see, Angry Vegan says, I like the Kite Hill almond yogurt drinks. Cool, I haven't seen those here in Hungary, but I don't know. I think the Kite Hill company did the survey that I talked about earlier in the stream. Start Chill Meat, what is your LDL in American? I always have to go and do the conversions too. You need to get it under 70 milligrams per deciliter. Alright, so that was all I had on Februdairy, but yeah, you can just really see kind of like a lot more stuff on my Twitter. If anybody doesn't follow me on Twitter, I went crazy on Wednesday. I mean, I tweeted so much about Februdairy and why I ditched dairy and all this kind of stuff that it was probably like my biggest tweet day ever. I got a bunch of new people following on there, so that was pretty cool. And yeah, again, just shout out to everybody who did their part and keep doing it. I mean, Februdairy is still here for the rest of the month. You know, share stuff on you know, your various social media platforms and get the message out there. Like I said, if anybody came late, I have a bunch of my you know, videos about Februdairy and about dairy production linked all in my top tweet. So go check that out and get the message out there. Alright, jumping into something that is happening in the UK. There was a scare of equine flu, and it's shut down horse racing now for the next few days. So it says here, all race meetings in Britain have been cancelled until next Wednesday due to an outbreak that they fear anyway, because I guess some horses that were inoculated against the equine flu were tested positive, so they're thinking maybe there's a new strain, and they're worried that it might spread, so they don't want it spreading in the races where the horses have you know, interaction with each other, and they also don't want it to spread to other areas. And this article talks about how it's actually kind of like rampant all over the place, but I guess a lot of the racehorses are inoculated, and it's just really crazy. I guess it takes like 3 days for the symptoms to show, and they don't want the you know, the thing to get out there and you know, spread even worse. And the reason I know about this article was actually because of somebody on Twitter who is a hunt sab, and they shared this and basically said, like, look, you know, even with this going on, do you think it's going to mean that the hunts planned for the weekend are going to be canceled? And of course not. They're going to keep going. So it's like, you know, people just don't care about their horses. Horse racing is a really terrible thing. If anybody is watching and isn't aware of it, horse racing is just like incredibly cruel. The horses are shot usually after, when they're no longer you know, racing. Some of them are sent out to pasture if they're like a really good racehorse, and then they can like sire more horses. Sometimes they will you know, get to live a little bit longer, but there's really high rates of injury. A lot of times the horses are shot right on the race course, which is horrific. I can't even, you know, I can't even believe how somebody can imagine that that is a sport where somebody falls down. Imagine if, like, if you're in the Olympics and you drop the weights or something, you tore your rotator cuff, and then they, you know, somebody comes over and just shoots you behind the curtain. It's like, well, he'll never be the same again. You know, like, it's awful. It's just absolutely awful. Like, maybe I'll do a separate whole video about horse racing and horse riding, but yeah, it's just terrible stuff, and just really goes to show you how little regard people have for the well-being of these animals. I think I missed out on a bunch of comments. Let me just scroll up here. Meat is murder. Oh, man. Let's see, Leon. I eat soy yogurt almost every day. It's more easy to eat my fruit that way. Hey, you know, it's like, I don't blame you, Leon. I think, you know, if like I said, you know, it already doesn't have the cholesterol, so even if you are eating like a coconut one, it might have you know, a lot of saturated fat, but it's still better than the dairy one. And the soy one obviously has much lower saturated fat, so it's probably fine. I wouldn't think that, you know, you would really have any kind of ill effects from that. But yeah. Let's see. Start chill. Meat high allium consumption was found last year to reduce CVD by 64%. High allium. What is allium? Is that a mineral? Anyway, I have to check that out. Thanks a lot, Kathy. I really appreciate that. Tweeting out the Februdairy tweets. I was going crazy on Wednesday. I was like just doing so much. Pretty much like told the family, I'm like, I'm going to be on the computer all day and tweeting. I've never really done that before. It was kind of crazy. But thank you. It's very much appreciated, and welcome. And let's see what other. Whoa, yeah, meat is murdered. That is a high number, 9.7, the UK number. I don't know if it's the same as what we use here in Hungary, but that's pretty high. I think even the kind of standard guidance is supposed to be like 4 or something. But way to go, man. Like, kudos to you for getting that under control and you know, doing the whole food plant-based diet. That's gonna really like fix you up. Angry vegan, greetings. Yep. Did I miss anything else? Oh man, that's really cool. Pouring the yogurt over the fruit salad. That's great. And I actually took the regular, like the one I told you guys about, the Joya plain soy-based yogurt, and I made basically like almost like a dressing, like a, you know, like a ranch dressing kind of thing, or like a Thousand Island or whatever. Just like throw a bunch of seasoning in there and pour that over a regular salad. It's like, it's so good, and it's like 10 times cheaper than anything else you can buy. Super easy to do. I'll do a video about that. I will do a horse video, Perpetually Annoyed. I think that's good. Thanks. I will do it, especially if you guys want to see it. Oh, is it your birthday, Kathy? Happy birthday. Allium is the onion family vegetables. Cool. Thanks, Starch. You thought I was a health nerd. I try to be a health nerd, but I don't know. Sometimes I learn stuff. Thanks. I appreciate you guys being on, teaching me stuff. So yeah. So it's the onion family. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so it's not Kathy's actual birthday, but anyway, that's fine. And Angry Vegan's gonna have his birthday in 5 days. Cool, man. Happy birthday in advance. That's really good. All right, back to the hunters and all the horrible stuff they do. This one was just a crazy thing that got shared by one of the hunt sabs I follow on Twitter, and they had video proof and photographic proof. This is just like a still from the video that you had some of these like hunt people going around. There were 4 people sitting on this quad bike, and they were riding on a actual road, so they were not on a trail. There's no way that this thing is legal for 4 people to sit on this stupid thing. And they filed a complaint as the police were very much visible right there. They didn't stop them. They didn't ask them why they were sitting so many people on there, and they didn't do anything. And they actually filed a complaint from, you know, about this lack of action. And the police chief wrote back a wonderful, you know, thing, and they said, you know, what about the you know, offenses committed on the quad bike? And he wrote back, "It may be that there are too many people sat on the bike, but without being there, I cannot ascertain if that is the case or not. Certainly the picture is not clear enough." So he's basically saying there's no violations. And he's even saying, like, yeah, you can see that it has a registration plate, although I admit it does appear to need a clean. However, it is not sufficiently dirty to prevent Piercy, I guess that's the name of the police officer, from completing a check on the vehicle through the national computer. I am absolutely 100% sure that they did not check anything of the sort, and they just ignored the fact that there's 4 people sitting on this. You can very clearly see the 4 people. It is just beyond ridiculous. I mean, you can see the blow up of the image here. There's like 1 person here, another person here, another person here, and 1 person there. Absolutely beyond ridiculous. The police are so like in bed with all these hunt people. They just refuse to do any kind of action, and just absolutely beyond like crazy. All right, cool. Meat is murder. Eats lots of onions now. Rare, raw and cooked. Leeks. Just need to love garlic more. Cool. All right. Hunt related news. I wanted to share an article. This one is actually in Hungarian, so I apologize to anybody who doesn't speak Hungarian, but I'm sure you can find this in English as well. And they have a video linked on Vimeo, which is subtitled in English, and the people speaking are in Spanish. But this article, my wife got me hip to this. Here in Hungary, they did this article talking about the hunting dogs of Spain. So these dogs, we have these dogs here in Hungary too. In Hungarian, they're the Agad or Agad. I don't even remember how to pronounce that. Agad is the name of these types of dogs. I don't know what they're called in English, and I think they're just like greyhounds. Oh yeah, here it is, Spanish greyhound. Yeah, and so the fact is that these are raced as well in Spain, but they also use them for hunting. And they are treated horrifically badly, and somebody has finally started to put like social media pressure on the Spanish people to try and do something about this, because apparently every year they kill between 50 and 100,000 of these dogs in Spain. It is just absolutely incredible to me. They're beautiful, wonderful dogs, but basically they if they don't run fast enough, they don't do enough, do well enough in a race. If they are no longer viable for use as hunting dogs, or if they get injured in the hunt or whatever, I mean, people just literally kill them, and they leave them out to be starved. They hang them, they torture them. Apparently there is a kind of like belief, I mean I can't even believe this. It's like in today's age you read about these kinds of things, and like people believe this kind of stuff, that the more they suffer, the better the growing season will be, apparently. So these dogs are just subject to horrific abuse, and you know, there's like they say 2.5 million dogs in use in Spain. There's only about 46 million people that live in that country, so that's a huge number of dogs. And yeah, it's just crazy. So definitely check this out if you're interested. The video is on Vimeo. You can watch the documentary about it, and it's really, really crazy and really sad. And I just wanted to point this out and highlight it because you know, these kind of abuses of dogs is not just in China, it's not just in Korea, it's not just in wherever in Asia. It's very real, and it happens all over, and it's in Spain as well, and it's in Hungary too, because as this article points out, some of the dogs were brought over to Hungary, and they found homes here for them. But at the end of the article, they also point out that a lot of times here in Hungary, people will do the same thing. Hunters will shoot their dogs, or if they get injured in a hunt, they'll just shoot them and dump them and leave them in the woods and stuff. Same kind of thing. Like, people just don't treat them well, and a lot of times, yeah, you just see a lot of suffering dogs. And I've seen a lot of pictures on Twitter recently of people sharing stuff from Spain, so I'm pretty sure this is legit. I don't think it's made up. Scary stuff. Very sad. Leon, your comment, yeah, about the police, that the fines are up to the police's discretion. Yeah, and obviously when the people running the hunts are the politicians who are the most corrupt people on the face of the earth, probably, you know, they can probably replace the police chief. You know, it's like, I think that's pretty obvious why they don't hand out too many fines. This is a very, very crazy thing. This is why I said the previous article, you know, animal abuse is not just in Asia or some, you know, far-flung part of the world. It's everywhere. And there are now two members of the U.S. House of Representatives who introduced a bill. They reintroduced the bill because it was already previously, you know, filibustered or shot down or whatever. And they now have reintroduced the bill to make malicious acts of animal cruelty a felony nationwide. And the person convicted of the crime could face up to 7 years in prison or a fine, or both. And they talk about, you know, how this is bipartisan and it's hopefully going to go through and blah, blah, blah. And here you can see a previous law to protect animals, the Animal Crush Video Prohibition Act, passed in 2010 and outlaws producing gruesome videos of animal abuse. And I immediately thought, this is like so weird. It's like, it's illegal to video the abuse, but it's not illegal to do the abuse. And they're it's like, isn't that kind of backwards? Like, it's absolutely crazy. And you can see here, it says the Humane Society Fund supports the measure, noting that while most states consider certain acts of animal cruelty a felony, some penalties are still considered misdemeanors. The bill earned 284 bipartisan co-sponsors and more than 200 law enforcement endorsements in the previous session of Congress, according to the group. However, former Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte, I don't know who that is, kept it from coming to the floor for a vote. Goodlatte is no longer in Congress, and supporters of the measure are more optimistic about its chances of passing this time around. Now, you know, this is like, I hail any kind of thing that stops animal abuse, but what you have to realize too is this does not apply to farm animals. So it doesn't apply to hunting, it doesn't apply to farm animals, and I think, I can't remember what is the other, oh, here it is. The legislation contains exceptions for hunting, veterinary care, and actions necessary to protect life or property from a serious threat of an animal. Now, obviously, the last part, okay, that's fine. A bear is attacking you, you should be able to protect yourself. Okay, fine. But hunting and veterinary care, like, what kind of situation does veterinary care call for a, you know, violence towards animal? Like, I just can't even understand that. But yeah, this will not protect farm animals, and it's definitely not going to protect hunted animals. Very sad. But if it protects dogs and cats, at least it's a step in the right direction. This was a crazy article, again in Hungarian. Sorry for that, but I just wanted to share it. They found a poor seal where they were analyzing its poop because they were doing like scientific research and they were trying to figure out, you know, what the thing was eating. it turned out that they found a working USB pen drive inside of its poop, and they were able to basically recover the files, and they found the video and pictures like on the USB drive. So it was still working, and they're just talking in this article about how it's super important to protect wildlife in the ocean and not throw you know, plastics into the water and all this kind of stuff. And then they also talk about how they are already finding microplastics within not just the animals but in people as well. And so they were saying that Austrian researchers had already found it in human waste. And the Danube River is apparently also polluted with microplastics, and it's just really sad. So really crazy stuff. Meat is murder. Blood pressure has come down from 170 over 101 in August to 100 over 68. A bit too low, actually. I think, yeah, it's supposed to be like 110 over 70 is like ideal. So that's, I think, according to what Dr. Greger says, is like the perfect blood pressure. Yeah. Leon says, might be euthanization of racing animals that vets do that's protected. Oh, maybe. I don't know. I wonder. But the hunting provision, I just thought was like, I mean, it's an obvious thing because like hunting is absolutely cruel, but you know they're not going to ban that, so, or not yet. This one was a sad bit of news from India. Yeah, I was getting a bit dizzy. Yeah, you gotta be careful with that. So I don't know if your doctors had, I think you had said before that you were going to get some like, you know, blood pressure medication and stuff, so hopefully you're not taking that, because that might be driving it down too low. You might also need to just adjust what you are taking, or I don't know if you are taking anything, but Start Chill, did I see Veg Source versus Dr. Greger on nuts? No, I have not. I didn't know there was such a video. I will take a look. I'm going to side with Dr. Greger, probably. I'll hear everybody out, but I've got a couple things that I don't really like too much about Veg Source, so that's maybe just me. But anyway, hi Vohan, welcome. Okay, so you didn't take anything. That's good. Meat is murder. I don't know. Like, it's good that you're not taking anything, but yeah, maybe see. Okay, Start Chill says I won't side with Dr. Greger. Okay, I'll check out the video. I can't imagine something that I won't side with Dr. Greger on, but whatever. Next story here. India, 600 olive ridley sea turtles washed up on shore, and 2 dolphins. They're basically saying these were products of bycatch in a protected area where there shouldn't be fishing anyway, but they're pretty sure that these were caught in fishing nets and you know, thrown overboard, and then they washed up ashore. Very, very sad. These are protected animals. They are asking for people with any information to report anything they know to the local government, state government, blah, blah, blah. You know, you can see here, forest officials have already arrested around 380 fishermen and seized 83 fishing vessels on charges of illegal fishing in Gahir Mata. I think this is kind of related to the story that I covered previously, but obviously illegal fishing and illegal poaching and all this kind of stuff is going on all over the place. But yeah, go figure, right? Now the doctor, now that you've fixed your own problem through diet, now they're like, oh, you don't need the meds. That's good. Okay, Leon says, I think he says a handful a day is healthy, but too much is bad for you due to the saturated fat content in nuts. So Dr. Greger saying that, or the Veg Source guy saying that? I'm curious. I'll check that out in either case. This one is for the people in the UK. Crazy news that people are selling shark to unsuspecting customers. these consumers of the chips and fish, kind of classic UK food that I always think of whenever I've gone there. I've always kind of seen that as being popular, but they're basically selling shark, and people are not being aware of that they are buying shark. And in fact, they did DNA testing on a bunch of samples, and what they found was that the sharks are from various protected species. So not only are they endangered, but people are also being kind of duped into buying something that they are not aware of. So crazy stuff. Check out this article. I think Dr. Greger said it in some old video. Okay, yeah, Start Chill. Maybe just send me a message or something, and I'll take a look, like, with the actual video you're thinking of. But I mean, I kind of think like a handful of nuts is always, like, you know, good for you. But like, if you're eating like 10 handfuls of nuts a day, like, that's probably not good for you. It's a lot of calories, and I mean, is there some upper limit? Probably. I mean, I don't know what that is, but I would think like a handful is probably fine. If you want my advice, keep allium and fruit consumption high to mitigate CVD risk. If you want to see the studies, send me a message on Twitter. Okay, I will. Or you're saying that for meat? Yeah, for meat is murder. And yep, the horse meat scandal. That's right, meat is murder. So people get really upset when they get something that they think they're getting something else. And as people on Twitter are also, you know, quick to point out, it's really almost funny as a vegan when you see people getting upset about going into like a KFC or some kind of other fast food joint and seeing like a part of the animal in their food that they didn't expect to find there, like a chicken leg or a brain or a, you know, whatever, and people just get so incredibly upset about it. But it's like yes, that's part of a dead animal. It's like it got processed, you know, on the same plant, and sometimes people make a mistake and some body part ends up in there that you didn't kind of think. And it's also probably a body part that in other parts of the world, like, people would eat. So it's just kind of crazy. Alright, so anyway, check that out if you get a chance. And if any of your friends, or if you are a consumer of fish and chips, like, you definitely want to get educated and find out. You might be eating shark, and in fact endangered sharks. Okay, this one is just basically related to a story that I've covered multiple times. It's about the whales and other aquatic sea life that's damaged by the use of sonar. There is a new research that was published by the Proceedings of the Royal Society B, where they basically said that it is conclusive that the sonar is what's causing the killing of these whales. They often dive down to escape from the sonar, or they dive up too quickly and they get the bends, basically, and it's conclusive. So that's the short and skinny of the article. And the part that I also wanted to share really quick was here, just that the authors note that to mitigate the impacts of sonar on beaked whales, we must ban its use in areas where they're found. A moratorium on the use of MFAs, these are the sonar, around the Canary Islands in 2004 shows just how well this works. No atypical strandings have been seen since. The researchers urge other countries where sonar is deployed, such as the US, Greece, Italy, and Japan, to follow suit. Now, again, you know, good luck on trying to get these countries to cooperate. Especially the first and the last, I would say, are probably going to be the toughest to convince, but who knows, maybe. Perpetually annoyed. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why people get so upset about horse and shark meat, but not by pig or cow meat. I think the shark meat, it has to do with the fact that they are endangered, whereas cows and pigs are not endangered. So I think that's some of it for the shark. For the horse meat, I think it's just because people, well, I mean, the people who are upset, they don't normally eat it. So it's just, it would be like the dog meat or whatever. It's kind of like, you think of a horse as like this nice, like, pretty animal, and you ride one when you go on a trip somewhere or whatever. It's like they don't really think of it as a food animal, so they just get really upset. I think that's it. But yeah, it's a cognitive dissonance thing. From here out, I think I've only got good news, if I remember right. So this is the emotional roller coaster that we talked about last time. The good news here, Kellogg's is going to be ending animal testing. So they've been apparently doing animal testing for the past 65 years. A bunch of mice and rats and all this kind of stuff. Absolutely crazy. I guess PETA's been petitioning them to stop doing animal testing since 2007. And they're finally now saying that they're going to phase it out and end all animal testing according to their 2019 Corporate Responsibility Report. It's interesting because in this article they say that they deny the claim that they have been engaged in such testing, but yet at the same time they're publishing their commitment to end animal testing in 2019. So it's like, I don't know, what are you denying? Like, if you're saying that you're actually, you know, like gonna like phase it out. I don't know. I don't understand it. But in any case, any company that stops animal testing, I'm all for that. I've talked about this many times before. Animal testing is completely illogical. It's completely unethical. It sends researchers down the wrong path often. So there's a huge opportunity cost. Who knows what kind of things that could be getting discovered are not, because animal testing is sending people in the wrong direction. And it's incredibly unethical. So it's ineffective, illogical, and just horrifically like unethical. And especially for something like breakfast cereal. Like, do we really need to be killing animals for that? Unbelievable. But at least they're stopping. This one, there was a fox fur farm in China. Yes, it was in China. And they were shutting down because they were going out of business, basically. So I think they were just losing sales and what have you. And a local dog sanctuary place, which is home to over 2,400 canines, were looking to help this fur farm find a home for these foxes. And they succeeded in having a Buddhist monastery. It's a nursing garden in Mundanjiang, China. They took all 170 foxes, and they are looking for a more permanent, I guess, like solution. But for now, they have like, you know, the foxes just living there among the monks in this Buddhist monastery. And there's a little video. I don't know why it didn't load here on my page. Sometimes I have trouble with this when I'm doing the live stream. It doesn't load the video, but you can watch it, and it's pretty cute. And they're looking for donations so that you know, they have enough to feed the foxes and all this kind of stuff. And it's pretty cool. You can see them here in this picture. So I don't know. Kudos to them for doing that. And I guess the fur farm was thinking of just killing them. Even though they weren't going to sell them, but luckily these activists convinced them to donate them to this, well, like sanctuary in this Buddhist monastery. Next, this one isn't about veganism per se, it's just about the environment. This one is a report that is not even that current, so I'm being upfront with you guys, unlike the other article, which I thought was current. This one was from January of last year. But it was just really awesome to see, and I hadn't seen it. So they're basically saying that by 2020, so just like another year from now, renewable energy will be cheaper than fossil fuels. This was a report that got put together in 2017 and got released January of last year. And what they are saying is here, in the United States, solar and wind power accounted for nearly 95% of all new electricity capacity added last year. And that success can partially be attributed to the closures of fossil fuel plants, but they also talk about the pricing coming down on renewable energy. So you can see here, fossil fuel generation today costs between 5 cents and 17 cents per kilowatt hour in the G20 countries, including the US, the UK, Russia, Japan, India, and Germany. By 2020, however, renewables are expected to cost 3 cents to 10 cents per kilowatt hour, with the price of onshore wind power and solar photovoltaic projects expected to be as low as 3 cents per kilowatt hour by 2019. So this is already happening, and within the next, you know, this year and next year, it's going to be more economically feasible to put in place renewable energy. And you know, basically they're already finding that coal plants are becoming a financial burden. this really gives you new kind of insight into the story that I covered last week when I talked about Germany phasing out their coal plants. And you know, I really think like there's some interesting stuff there that I hadn't considered there, that it seems like they may have just been doing like a big payout by the government for an industry that was going to be dying and on its way out anyway. I wonder. So might have to kind of reevaluate that situation. But in either case, I would still rather have government corrupt money being sent to shut down coal plants than to prop up dairy industry, for example. So take it with a grain of salt, I guess. But anyway, here is the quote that I want to leave you with from this article. Turning to renewables for new power generation is not simply an environmentally conscious decision. It is now and overwhelmingly a smart economic one. Continued, I mean, that's the person who was in charge of the report. We expect the transition to gather further momentum, supporting jobs, growth, improved health, national resilience, and climate mitigation around the world in 2018 and beyond. So, yeah, it's just really cool. Meat is murder. I just noticed Adidas have returned my DM about vegan suitable trainers. Cool. Nice. More vegan options, the better. Next, Michelle Pfeiffer. Veganism is my fountain of youth. I didn't know that Michelle Pfeiffer was vegan, but kudos to her for that. She credited her youthful glow to her plant-based diet. It doesn't sound like she's an ethical vegan per se. I don't know if she is, so don't quote me on it. But she's basically talking about how she had a family history of cancer. She decided to go on a vegan diet as the healthiest option. And yeah, she says, it's so much healthier. You avoid a lot of toxins that could age your skin and your body. I really noticed a difference in my skin not too long after switching to fully vegan, and I needed to eat the fruits and vegetables to stay lean. It's all about vanity, honestly. The older I've gotten, the more it's occurred to me that I'm doing it in order to live longer, though the vanity component will always be there. So kudos to her. I don't care why she's vegan as long as she is, and hopefully people are inspired by that. Leon, have I heard that they added some scenes to the Game Changers? No, I have not. I wonder what is going to be in there. Interesting, though. Beyonce and Jay-Z is giving away free tickets for life, but there is a catch. They are having a contest where if you commit to adopting a vegan diet, you can be chosen at random to win a pair of tickets annually for 30 years. So they're saying that that's a prize that has a retail value of about $12,000. It's 9,000 pounds. And they're gonna just pick people who follow them on Instagram or whatever, and basically, you know, say that they're gonna switch to a oh, it says full or partially vegan diet. I don't even know what that means, but hey, whatever, man. I don't care. I don't listen to their music. I don't know too much about them, but I know there was some stuff in the news where they were kind of like on a vegan diet for a while, then they kind of went back. But I think their chef slash personal trainer or whatever, that guy's like hardcore like vegan and is like always trying to get them to be vegan, and it seems like they've been more and more vegan since. So I know they've made previous kind of encouragement to their fans and followers to adopt a vegan diet. So I think, hey, great. Angry Vegan says, I bet a lot of people will lie to get the free tickets. And, you know, they might. That's kind of what I thought too, but, you know, it's kind of like, I almost don't even care. Like, I mean, there's no way we could tell anyway, and as long as somebody says they're vegan, like, that's already still maybe a benefit. Like, I don't know. Like, just the fact that they're asking people to go vegan, some people might do it. So even if you have a few people who might lie, I'm sure some people will legit, like, say they will do it, and they'll at least try it. So, Lewis Hamilton is in the Game Changers now, too. Okay, cool. Yeah, Lewis Hamilton's, like, a very, very vocal proponent of veganism now. So if anybody doesn't know, he's the Formula One race car driver, and he's, like, been on crazy winning streaks, and he's attributed a lot of his, you know, newfound kind of, like, I don't know, performance boost to the vegan diet, and he's a pretty vocal advocate for it as well. So I think that's really cool. Next, this is just kind of like a feel-good article, and for anybody who's watching from the UK, apparently Bath is the vegan capital of the UK. So there is an article here where they take you through a herbitour of the city. I think that's really cute and funny, and you can experience all its plant-based delights. And they talk about how they picked it and why they picked this place as opposed to all the other places in the UK. They looked at Google searches, number of vegan restaurants, social media mentions, etc., and then they figured that this place was the most vegan-friendly place. They had 153 vegan-friendly restaurants and around 360,000 Google searches each month for vegan-related content. So that is pretty cool. Apparently second place was Manchester, third was Cambridge, and fourth best city was Leeds. Apparently there was a huge gap there between the third and fourth, and London was fifth, followed by Liverpool, Oxford, Glasgow, Brighton, and Newcastle. So that's pretty cool, and they talk about how you can take a tour going around and you can get various vegan discounts and all this kind of stuff, and I don't know, it's like pretty cool, like makes me want to go visit. So like, yeah, kudos to Bath, and anybody who wants to go visit, and especially if it's close to you, like might be a great place to just go. It seems like it's beautiful. Next we've got a woman finishes a marathon while carrying a puppy. So she was like only just a few miles into the race in Thailand. This lady's name is Kemira Klongsanun. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I hope so. And she enjoys racing, and she's run a bunch of marathons, and she's a huge dog lover. And when she was running, she found this little puppy dog on the side of the road that was clearly abandoned, and nobody was like there, and nobody was taking care of it. So she literally picked up the puppy and ran the rest of the marathon with the puppy, and it's cute as heck. And afterwards she did try to go back and make sure that you know, nobody was like looking for it, or that it wasn't, you know, like maybe its mom was nearby. She couldn't find anything, and so she adopted the puppy and took it home. She already had several dogs, and now it's like living with her, and it's just really nice. And I think that's just like wonderful that, you know, she really tried to do the right thing and didn't give up on this little dog. Especially in Thailand, I imagine that something like this is probably not common. I would imagine it would be pretty easy for most people to just ignore the dog and leave it, and she didn't do that. So that's really cool. Nice, touching little story. And the last story for today, I've talked before about Greta Thunberg already, spurring all these awesome students all over the globe to do climate strikes. So they're skipping school and basically bringing attention to climate change. You can see the story here. For a fourth week, tens of thousands of children have skipped school in Belgium to join protests demanding for tougher action. And yeah, basically it's really cool. It says ahead of the marches in Brussels, Liège, and Louvain, dozens of children protested outside the home of Belgium's environmental minister. New impetus came in an open letter from 3,450 Belgian scientists saying the activists are absolutely right. That's a huge number of scientists. Youth demonstrations have also taken place in Germany and Switzerland. More than 30,000 students and others turned out in 3 Belgian cities. It says it's slightly down on last week, so that's still pretty impressive, and it was even more the week before. So it says, yeah, the biggest number, according to police, was in the eastern city of Liège. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Where 15,000 people marched to the city hall. Protesters clapped and chanted "To arms and everyone together." Awesome to see. 12,500 people turned out in Brussels, and a further 3,500 in Louvain. So awesome, awesome. I can't, you know, applaud these people enough. Please, 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 you know, if you can, do your part. Encourage your, you know, friends, your children, if you have them, school age, to start one in their, you know, local, you know, city. And follow Greta on Twitter as well. I love seeing her tweets. So this is really great. And that is pretty much it. That's all I got for the articles. And I'm getting pretty sore in the throat here. Let me switch back to my camera. yeah, so that's all I got, guys. Let me know if anybody has anything else they want me to talk about, or if you guys have any other cool stories. Alright. I know there's always a little bit of a delay before people start typing, but hopefully everybody saw my why I'm still vegan video, and if you have, or if you haven't, either way, I would encourage you to make your own video and get your message out there. Try to you know, let people know why are we still vegan. Although it's kind of funny because you know, just even in the comments, like, I can't remember, shoot, who said it. I can't remember if it was Nikki or somebody else. So apologies, I can't remember who asked, but somebody said, like, yeah, they always get this feeling when they watch this kind of video of, like, it's a bit of you know, why I still don't think it's a good idea to murder animals, like video. And in a way, like, I absolutely feel for that. Like, it's almost absurd that we would have to make a video explaining to somebody, like, why I'm still vegan. It's like, yes, I've made an ethical connection, I understand something, and yeah, I still think it's a good idea. It's kind of like, it's almost sad that we have to do it, but I really think we should do it, and I really think, like, the more people that do it and counter these kind of ridiculous, like, why I'm no longer vegan videos, the better. I mean, it goes hand in hand with the thing I was saying in the censorship video, that, like, I really think, like, the best kind of defense against these kind of, like, extreme views is to actually get on the offense with the positive view. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. So thank you Perpetually Annoyed, and thank you, Leon. Thank you, I appreciate that. It's gotten pretty good response. Like, I hope, you know, more people see it. I find it really frustrating that I don't know if anybody has seen the video that John Venus did. I found that video so frustrating. Like, he did a video, in case anybody didn't see it, where he basically explains why he's no longer going to be labeling himself as vegan, and thankfully he is still going to be eating a vegan diet. So he says well, at least he says he is. He's still going to be plant-based, but he wants to be plant-based and not you know, vegan. And man, like, just every wrong reason that you could give, like, was given. He's just like, there's so many mean vegans, and, like, you know, kind of these mean, aggressive vegans give veganism a bad name, and he doesn't want to be associated with it and whatever. It's like literally the opposite of what he should be doing. He's had a positive message, you know, before. If he doesn't want the angry vegan message to be the one that's the loudest out there and the most vocal, then he should contribute his voice to the positive, you know, happy vegan message. And yeah, I don't know. I left him a comment. I was actually thinking of doing maybe a video about it, but I really kind of hate doing these kind of responses to people, and like, if he's going to continue to at least be plant-based, like, and promote that as a dietary kind of preference or choice, then it's still kind of a good message, and I don't want to slag him too bad, but man, I think he really missed the boat on that. Like, he's just like, I unsubscribed after that video. Like, I don't know, just super frustrating. So yeah, please, if you guys make videos or whatever, or just, you know, like, or if you don't, get out there and make one now. Perpetually Annoyed. Vegan. John Venus chastises vegans for being judgmental, yet proceeds to judge ethical vegans. Okay. Yeah, I think it's just like he's really missed the mark. Like, it's like, you know, if you don't want to see that kind of message out there, then put out a positive message to counter it. Like, it's that simple. Leon says, I hope he won't change, but it seems to me like he might be testing the waters to change the meat to meat again. I don't want to, like, you know, say that, but yeah, the thought kind of crossed my mind. Like, I kind of hope that's not the case. The way I've kind of viewed his video was like this. I actually had seen a bunch of his videos like way back, and I never really liked his channel enough to subscribe, but like there was one that he did like I don't know, it was probably a few months ago, where he was like super positive about veganism, and he's like, guys, you know, I'm kind of like sorry for, you know, always feeling like having like I'm beating around the bush about like veganism, and I'm just not gonna like hide that part of my life anymore, and I'm just gonna be like more open and talk more openly about like, yes, I'm vegan and whatever. And he did this video, and I was like, yeah, that's like right on, and it's cool, and then I subscribed as well, and I thought that was like really nice that he was like, you know, being like you know, like pro like vegan instead of just like, I mean, I think he was always pro vegan, and he even talked about the ethics pretty well, I think, in some videos that I've seen, but with that one, it was like he was like very much coming out into the open to talk about it. And with that though, he, you know, I think what happened is he was probably again testing the waters. It's almost like a marketing thing. Start show. We're talking about John Venus. He's a bodybuilder, pretty jacked vegan guy. Lives up in Norway or Spain or someplace. I think he moves around. Play that electric drum set. I've gotten requests for that, so I might have to do that too. Yeah, so when he did that video, I was like, yeah, this is really cool. He's like you know, spreading a good vegan message. I'm going to subscribe. And I think what he was doing was really kind of like seeing like, oh, you know, maybe his views went down, or maybe they didn't go up. I don't know. I kind of get this feeling that like he was like using that as a way to see like, is he going to get a better response or worse? And I kind of fear like maybe he got a worse response, and now he has to make up some kind of BS like excuse of why he's not going to call himself vegan anymore, and then maybe just cater to more just like the bodybuilding kind of angle, which is like a big part of his channel. That's kind of what I was thinking. But Leon, to your point, I hope that it's not like you know, he'll be the next like Bobby's Perspective or somebody like that, where he's just like, you know, oh, these mean vegans, they're so judgmental, and then like, who knows, I don't know. So we will see. So yeah, that's it, guys. I hope this was good. Hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, I'll try and get some. I got a bunch of videos kind of like lined up, like mentally, that I'm putting together. Got a lot of kind of interesting stuff, so hopefully you guys won't be bored. I got a bunch of things coming. So yeah, all right, guys, take it easy, and hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.